Alright, so we've got this guitar, we've got craziness, we have no idea what we're doing, right? And if you do know a little bit, I'm going to go over it like you don't. Just to be safe. It's all good. So we've got this thing here called a guitar. Yours might look different, but I assume we're playing electric guitar right now. So we've got, this is all obvious stuff, but we've got a guitar cable, goes into this jack. The other end of the cable goes into the jack on the guitar amp. It should say input. On some like beginner amps, there's one hole that says phones and another hole that says input. You want to plug it right into the input and go to town, all right? You plug it in. That's what you got. Now on the guitar, on this kind of guitar, this is called a Stratocaster. A lot of beginner guitarists get one similar to this, where it's got a switch right here, and a lot of times has three knobs. One of my knobs is broken. But you'd have three knobs, or other guitarists have a different configuration. None of that's going to really matter right now for us playing guitar, but what I will tell you is this switch here, all it does is it's activating these one or two or three of these little things right here that are called the pickups. It's basically like the equivalent of a microphone. It's the thing that picks up the sound, picks up the sound of the strings, and then produces a sound through the cable, and it goes into the amp and comes out of the amp, and it's magic. So what the pickup selector does is like for instance, if I'm flipped all the way up this way, it's only using this front pickup right here, what's also called the neck pickup. And if I do one switch back, it's using these two. If I go in the middle, it's all three. One more back, it's the back two. And the very far back, it's this one. And what that does is it gives you different sound qualities. You might not notice it too much like right off the bat if you're a beginner, but there's different tones. Like for instance, if I'm using this front pickup right here, it's got a nice kind of bit of a warmer sound. If I'm using a lot of distortion, that loud like gritty rock sound, a lot of guys use the very far back one. Now me I'm a professional guitar player and a guitar teacher. I almost exclusively use this front one. But for heavy distortion and rock, I typically use the far back one. But you can experiment. You'll notice little differences in the tone, the sound of the guitar. But that's basically what that does. This front knob here is my volume knob, okay? So right now, I have it turned all the way off. You're not going to hear anything, right? But as I turn the volume up, now we hear the guitar, right? Your guitar typically has two more knobs. They're called tone knobs. Turn those up all the way. I typically have my volume turned up all the way all the time, and both my tone knobs turned up all the way all the time. And I've played in front of as many as 50,000 people before, so I've got the experience, and I just don't even bother. I just have them all turned up all the way, and then I dial in my amp to get the different sounds. Just like that. Okay, so now let's talk a little more about the guitar. Not too much. I know you're getting antsy to learn something here, but this is like the bare bones of what you're going to need to know. Okay, we've got 6 strings on the guitar. At some point, we're going to want to memorize what these strings are called, and we're going to do that when I talk about tuning. But basically, we've got a low sounding note. We've got a high sounding note here. And it goes from low to high. Like that. Okay? So, then we have these little metal things on the neck. And if you've played one of those guitar video games, you're probably already used to, holding the guitar and using your, fingers pressing down and stuff like that. But basically, we have these areas here, and they're called frets. Now, I think the metal things they call frets, but what I think of the fret is the space in between the metal things. So if I were to say, okay, boys and girls, super, you're doing a great job learning rock and roll guitar today. You could take a finger, if I said, put your first finger, your index finger, on the first fret on this top string here, right? All that means is the space right here, in between these two little metal brackets. This is the first fret. So if I said, oh, first fret, I put the tip of my finger down and then pluck the string with a guitar pick. All right, hopefully you've got one of these. You got to use one to play rock music. If you don't have one, you know, in your first lesson and you just kind of start with your thumb, that's okay, but you got to get a pick. All right, promise me you'll do that. But if you got like a little jam pack together that came with a guitar and an amp and a cable, maybe a pack of strings, usually comes with some picks, the whole thing, you're ready to rock. All right? So anyway, we've got frets. Fret number 1 is this space. Fret number 2, fret number 3, 4, 5, so forth and so on. The dots on the guitar, they're just locator points. Help you kind of start memorizing where your fingers are supposed to go when you're memorizing a song. Fair enough, okay? So the other thing about producing a note out of your guitar, you want to use the very tip of your finger. It's going to feel a little weird at first. Just keep doing it. You know, the very tip of your finger, pressed down with a little bit of bend, a little bit of arch on your finger, and you want to be closer to the next fret this way to get a proper tone out of it. So in other words, if I said, you know, the 5th fret on this top string here, which is called the E string, also the 6th string. They call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 6th string, if I said the 5th fret, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's my 2nd dot. So you can start memorizing, oh, my 2nd dot's the 5th fret. So if I said the 5th fret on the 6th string, you take the tip of your finger and you're going to put it closer to where the 6th fret's approaching, as opposed to the 4th fret. When it's back here, it kind of gives you a cruddy buzzing sound. But if you just move it up a little bit, it doesn't have to be like right on the edge, but just a little bit more that way, you're going to get a much cleaner tone out of the note. And you won't have to press as hard either, and so that's going to be a good thing to know. Alright? So that's it. We got frets, we got strings, you know, all that kind of stuff. And let's talk now about tuning your guitar. To start with, when you want to get your guitar in tune, hopefully, maybe you saved up your money to get your first electric guitar, but you're going to want to save up again, if you haven't already, to get one of these electric tuners. It's going to be very valuable to you in the beginning because your ear has to develop a little bit for you to be able to tune by ear. Some people are just, you know, maybe 1 or 2 people out there are born with the natural ear to just tune their guitar right away, but you're going to save a lot of headache and bad sound by buying one of these electric tuners. Let me show you how to use this electric tuner. I'm going to go, you know, try not to spend too much time on it because we want to rock. We want to have some fun. So that's coming right up. So anyway, you got an electric tuner. There's a hole in the tuner and it says input. So what you would do is the part of your cable coming out of your guitar, the other end would go into instead of the input of the amp, you're going to take it out of the amp and put it into the input of the tuner. All right? You turn the tuner on. One of the most common mistakes when someone thinks their tuner's not working is they forgot that their volume was turned down on their guitar. Make sure your volume is cranked up all the way on the guitar when it's plugged into the tuner. Because even though you're not hearing a tone out of your guitar anymore because it's in the tuner still needs the guitar's volume to be turned up. Fair enough. Okay, so we plugged in, right? Here's the point in time where we have to try and memorize the strings of the guitar, because when we play a note, that letter is going to show up on the tuner, and we want to make sure it's the right letter, because if the string is so far out of tune, it may be closer to the wrong letter, and you end up tuning the string to the wrong note. That can happen. It does happen quite a bit to a beginner. So here's what we're going to do to memorize the strings of the guitar. We got to know it. Here it is. We're going to use a little saying so we can remember what they are. First of all, this 6th string here is called the E string. The 5th string, the next one down, is called the A string. Then we have the D string. Then we have the G string. No jokes. Then we have the B string. And then we have the high E string. So there's actually 2 E's on here. So that does actually mean that those same notes exist in higher and lower registers. All right? So E, A, D, G, B, and E again. We're going to use the saying, and once you get it, it should help quite a bit. It goes like this. Eddie ate dynamite. So E-A-D. Eddie ate dynamite. Eddie ate dynamite. I know that's not a smart idea, but he did it anyway. Eddie ate dynamite. Then we go, good by Eddie. G-B-E. So Eddie ate dynamite. Good by Eddie. Said Eddie! Ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. I just made that up, sorry. So Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. So what we do now is we're looking at our tuner, and we hit this Eddie, the E string, right? Hopefully on the tuner it says E, okay? And then there's a little needle going like this, all right? So what you want to do is the object is to get the needle right in the middle. So if it's down this way, like that, right? Or whatever, you know, either way, if it's pointing to your left when you're looking down at the tuner, that means the note is too low. And you need to turn your tuner, these knobs, bring the note up until the needle gets to the middle like that. Okay, that's what you want to do. You want to get it to the middle. So if it says E, but it's kind of off to the side, you tune it till you get it to the middle, all right? But let's say you're playing this E string, and it says C, or it says, you know, D. That means it's so low that it's actually 2 letter notes or 1 letter note below what it's supposed to be. So you got to crank it up. The needle will go across. Then it'll say E. You know, if it was D, you bring it up, then it says E. So you got to get it, bring it, till you get it to the middle. All right? Same thing goes for every string. So Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. The object is to pluck the note by itself and get your needle into the middle, and it's telling you that that note is ready to be rocked upon. Okay? So, hopefully that's a start. If there's anything confusing about that, there are lots of people out there that play guitar. Hopefully one of your friends or an uncle or a neighbor or something like that can give you some good guitar advice, you know, either helping you tune or showing you cool stuff to do. I mean, that's what I did. I had friends show me great riffs, and even now as I teach guitar, one of my students might show up with a song that I never learned, and I say, hey, show it to me. You know, I think it's really cool to be open to what your friends and comrades have to show you. So be open to that, all right? Anyone can show you something. So that's it for all the talk. We're going to just purely play music now. So get ready, put your thinking caps on, and we're going to shred it up, all right? We'll see you there. Get ready. Hey, what's up? You ready to rock? Cool. Just want to talk about your guitar amp real quick before we start playing. You plug in, right? Every amp has, you know, a little bit different kind of knobs on it and different kind of names for the different things on it. Real quick, I'm going to get real generic with it. You got a volume on your amp? Sweet. You got treble and you got bass. Maybe you have something that says mids on it. What you want to do is, just to start with, just to try it out, you don't want to crank everything all the way up. Your treble, I would say put it, you know, if it's turned all the way off and that's 0, bring it up to about 7. Your bass, if it's down at 0, bring it up to about 4. Your mids, if that's at 0, bring it up to about 2, just to start with. If you have a reverb on your amp, keep that pretty low. It kind of washes out your sound a little bit. It adds a nice softness, so think it about 2 or 3 on your reverb. And then you might have a volume and a little button that's an overdrive button, or you might have a volume and a gain, or a volume and a distortion. Basically, think of it this way. Gain and distortion and overdrive are all the same thing. Some different companies call it something different, right? So what you want to do is, if you want to get that really cool rock sound, that's your distortion, gain, or overdrive. What I recommend you doing is, if you want that kind of sound, crank your distortion, your drive, overdrive, all that, whatever that is, or the button, hit the button or turn that up almost all the way, but not quite all the way, and then have your volume down to 0. Okay, so what we're doing is we're setting a very high level of like fuzziness, then turn your volume up until you get the desired volume. So the thing is, with most beginner amps, you're going to be able to get that like really cool rock sound without it being too loud. Sometimes when someone gets a new amp, they hit the button and it's so loud and the parents get mad or whatever, your neighbors get mad. So what you can do is you can have your drive or overdrive, distortion turned up really high, but then your volume or your master volume just turned up just enough to where you get that cool sound, but it's not blowing you out of the water. All right, so let's get rocking.